Today, we're looking at a black ink by Papier Plume. They're black. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. And if you like videos like that, I would invite you to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, and there's timestamps down below so that if you are in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I put the ink into this Viscosity Van Gogh with a medium nib, wrote with it for a day, and then made sure I took my notes with it. This first writing sample is done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Additional papers will show up later. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to make sure I keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 11 seconds to dry. The scrubbies for both show us no real color variation. We didn't expect it, we didn't get it. Tomoe River, no bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, and the extra fine is significantly, wildly different in tone than the stub, with no feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry, looks more like a gray. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub, with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, 17 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows no color variation, and we didn't get any. And Rhodia, no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is still giving that gray with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, 8 seconds to dry. Medium's back to black, about the same black as the stub, with no feather, spread, halo sheen, or shade, 11 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine does show some color variation left to right, but we don't get it. Medium shows none, and we got none. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see that they really were working to make a super dark, rich black here. And it's evident through the mixing that's going on. We have a green at the bottom, although the green is forming a line very quickly that's staying in place. It pushes up to a dark blue with a darker purple on top. Now mixing like this has a tendency to make super dark blacks. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And we see that green line on the bottom, very dark, very there, really bonding with the paper. It's much lighter pushing it up. The blue line that's there is lighter than the original blue line. And the purple, that is lighter as well. All of these tones got lighter. A lot of them I feel got left behind in that line. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before I test it. Based on the second chromatography, I'm surprised when I'm looking at this highlighter. I really thought given more time that more of the ink would have really seeped in. The highlighter has a ton of blowout and feathering all over it. Now I can still read what's there. You could still use it in a note-taking situation. I just wouldn't. Water's only moving the darkest top layer. You can barely see the circle where that water droplet was. We have the same problem when it comes to pen flush. It's really not doing a lot to get rid of and break down this ink. It's only lifting its top darkest layer. But all of the rest is still very much there and not budging. The 1/3 bleach solution is breaking it down a lot. That was only 30 seconds that it was there. Most of this is going away. We're really being left with this kind of khaki brown color. Now, make sure you test this ink in an inexpensive pen so that you don't risk staining. This ink really bonded with the paper quite well. It did take me quite a bit more work to clean this one out of my pen, but it didn't in the end stain my pen. I test viscosity or flow with a tilt test that I'll link the video on how I do that. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Papier Plume Black has a viscosity of 2.97, making it just a little bit drier than normal. It is almost normal, it's just a little bit drier. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now, for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Papier Plume Black has an average dry time of 12 seconds, making this a faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Papier Plume Black, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. And here I went with a nice magenta, Diamine Merlot. The second writing sample is done on TWSBI, Leuchtturm 1917 and 20-pound copy paper. Here we're looking at it on TWSBI notebook paper. Now we get no bleeding, no ghosting. I never count what happens with the scrubby because that's stupid thick as an area. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is not black, it's gray, so quite a bit lighter, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 6 seconds to dry. The medium goes back to being black with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 8 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine, far left to right, actually shows some color variation, although we don't get it. The medium shows none, and we got none. Leuchtturm 1917 journals, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is gray, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 5 seconds to dry. Medium becomes black again, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. Unknown dry time because I forgot to write it down for whatever reason. The scrubby of the extra fine does show color variation, although we're not really getting it. The medium shows none, and we got none. And 20-pound copy paper. Yes, we get a lot of bleed with the medium. We get really a full bleed, but not fully through the paper, touching the paper underneath. The extra fine has a ton of bleeding into, but not through the paper, but it does make the back of the page unusable. The medium has feather, has spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. It's gross. Don't use it. Ugh. The extra fine is gray again. It has feather, it has spread, it has no halo, no sheen, no shade. 1 second to dry. The scrubby shows us some color variation, although we don't get it. Don't use it on this paper. And that is all that I have for the writing samples. So what do I think of Papier Plume Black? Now it has some issues on cheaper paper in the writing samples. When writing with it, you are able to get color variation depending on what nib and pen you choose to put it into. However, you can get a very dark, rich black using the right pen. So what nib and pen would give the best writing experience with this ink? Now I found fine pens really left kind of a gray tone. So if you like grays, that can make a good compromise for this. Otherwise, if you want it to really be a black ink, make sure you're using a wet fine or wet medium to really put the ink down. I do new ink reviews every single day, so if you're new here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.